Hey everyone, how you doing? It's Liam from Push Square, and the review embargo for Cyberpunk 2077 lifted yesterday evening, and you might have noticed that our review has yet to go live. Now, we've yet to receive a review copy of the game just yet, as it seems only PC codes were distributed to publications early, so it's going to take us a little bit longer to get our impressions over to you, but don't worry, we'll have them live on both the site and the YouTube channel as soon as we feel like we've experienced everything Cyberpunk 2077 has to offer. But in the meantime, we thought it would be a good idea to just have a look at all of the reviews, do a little bit of a review roundup, and discuss what people like and dislike about Cyberpunk 2077. Before we start, if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, it would really help us out. So on the whole, critical impressions of Cyberpunk 2077 have been hugely positive. The game currently has an average score on both OpenCritic and Metacritic of 91, making it one of the highest rated games of 2020. It's currently rated higher than Animal Crossing, Dreams, and Doom Eternal, but slightly lower by 1 or 2 points than Hades, The Last of Us Part 2, Half-Life Alyx, Demon's Souls, and Microsoft Flight Simulator. But considering only a select number of publications have been able to review the game, 91 is pretty good going so far. So it's fair to say that critics like the game. But what do they like specifically? Well, pretty much every review I've read so far levy a lot of praise towards the main campaign and side missions. A lot of people have mentioned that compared to other open world games, there's no filler here. Every single side mission or side activity feels tailor-made and completely unique. In their review, VGC said, quote, "Throughout Cyberpunk's 50-hour plus package, it's impressive how little filler there is. Even 2077's side content is arguably as strong as its main story, with each mission offering a memorable detour through the futuristic cityscape." In fact, a lot of publications mentioned that game length and pacing are pretty much perfect. Apparently, it takes only 20 hours to get through the critical path, but taking your time and doing side quests easily doubles that time. In their review, IGN mentioned that the more time you put in it, the richer the end result. They said that they mainlined the main quest and found there were only 3 endings for them waiting at the end. However, after completing all of the side missions, that number increased to 7. It seems that even though the side missions are optional, they are still intrinsically linked to the main story, which sounds really interesting. In fact, loads of reviews mentioned how important your choices are to the overall story, with many noting that certain missions were only offered to certain players based on choices they'd made early on, and that some experienced completely different reasons for doing a mission or the outcome of a mission based on those choices. It'll be interesting as more people get their hands on the game to really understand just how many different outcomes there are based on the choices you make during the game's campaign. Night City itself had a lot of praise heaped on it. In their review, the gamer said, quote, "Night City feels like a proper place with proper infrastructure. As soon as you step into Night City and open the doors to one of its bars, nightclubs, or underground ripper docks, you believe in this place. Just existing here is more captivating than the action sequences in other games. Just being a passenger." Loads of people mentioned how beautiful and dense Night City is. Not only is it a huge place to explore, but it has a lot of layers, a lot of interior locations for you to explore and experience. It sounds loud and brash, but that's kind of the point. It's an exaggerated place to spend time within, but pretty much everyone who played the game said they loved being a part of its world. Another common talking point was that interacting with characters is perhaps the game's greatest strength. A lot of reviewers said that the best part of the entire game is when you're not shooting. It's when you're sat down talking to the residents of Night City. People have said the game is really well written, that performances are sensational. One review said that Keanu Reeves' performance was maybe the weakest out of everyone, which really says how good the performances are in this game. And a lot of reviews mentioned that beneath all the bombast and the neon and the noise, there's a very human heart to Cyberpunk, and talking to characters, getting to know them, helping them out feels natural and realistic. in a way that few games, especially open world RPGs, manage. And finally, a lot of people praised the combat, saying that there were lots of options, lots of skill trees and perks for you to pour points into, and that the mix of stealth, hacking, melee and guns all works pretty well. Moving on to the bad and keeping things on the combat, apparently it is a little bit limited. This isn't an immersive sim like Dishonored or Deus Ex, it's a little more rigid. It's first and foremost an RPG. That's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination, but those expecting to be able to play around with a number of interlocking systems may be a little bit disappointed. Also, apparently the enemies are a little bit spongy. I think combat is very much a numbers game. You shoot at something until all the numbers fall out of them, you get some loot, you move on. It's an RPG. However, the main issue that every single reviewer had was that the game has too many glitches. Many reviewers had massive issues with bugs, and a lot recommended that players may enjoy a more stable experience once a few more patches have been rolled out in the future. There is a day one patch coming, but again, a lot of the reviewers said that they looked at that list and a lot of the main issues they had aren't being addressed by that. One of the lowest scores given to the game by PC Gamer was primarily due to the bugs the writer experienced. They mentioned that every single mission had a bug of some sort that broke their immersion. I thought IGN said it perfectly when they said, quote, "I've had important or emotional conversations undermined by the characters I was talking to glitching between incorrect poses, or the objects they were holding and referencing not loading in at all. I'd frequently get phone calls in the middle of other conversations, causing two simultaneous discussions to overlap. I've had to sit through drives with my camera distractingly bobbing like I was in a run animation, and seen enemies or even my own shadow on a wall stuck in T-poses. And in the few important story moments you do get to see your own character model, I rarely had hair for some reason. Again, none of this stopped me from completing any significant quest, though I did have to reload saves in smaller missions a couple of times due to bugs hindering progress, or from loving the stories being told, but it was still ridiculous and distracting, dampening a few moments that would otherwise have been powerful." Now, bugs and glitches are commonplace in games like this. Fallout New Vegas, the original Red Dead Redemption, these games launched with a myriad of bugs that really did break the player's immersion. Even The Witcher 3, the last game by Cyberpunk developer CD Projekt Red, was riddled with issues upon its original release. But these bugs get patched out, and I can say with some confidence that Cyberpunk will be a more stable experience in 6 months' time than it will be when it first comes out. This is unfortunately par for the course with games like this, and I'm sure having to work remotely because of the situation with COVID probably hasn't helped that last minute polish. But it does seem to be an issue that everyone has experienced, and we'll just have to wait and see what that day one patch looks like before we can comment any further. And finally, because the game was reviewed by everyone on a high-end PC, a few publications did raise concerns about what console versions will look like. IGN again said, quote, "While I'd wholeheartedly recommend it on its gameplay merits, given the performance issues I've seen with a high-end PC GPU, I am wary of what it'll look like running on something like a launch Xbox One or PlayStation 4. If that's where you intend to play, I recommend waiting until we can provide you with some gameplay footage from those systems before you make your decision. We don't have our hands on a PlayStation 4 version of the game just yet, but we will be giving you our impressions of how it runs on console as soon as we can." So in general, Cyberpunk 2077 seems like a winner. Night City sounds like a beautiful location to explore, its narrative sounds well written and brilliantly acted, and its tailored side missions and relatively short critical path may make this the perfect RPG for time-strapped players or those looking to rinse it for everything it's worth. We will have our review of Cyberpunk 2077 on the website and the channel as soon as we get our hands on the game and feel that we've adequately experienced everything it has to offer, but until then, we'll just have to wait a little bit longer. Are you still excited for the game's release on the 10th of December? And what console will you be playing the game on? A base PS4, a PS4 Pro, or the PlayStation 5? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please do give us a like and make sure to subscribe to Push Square for everything PlayStation. Thank you, as always, for watching.